All right, we're live, I believe. All right, and I'm
We're
looking at
live.
myself talking. Okay, so welcome everybody. Welcome Deliverance Insiders. You can tell it's 6 o'clock. I was originally intending on going live at 5, but here we are. Audio problems resolved. So happy, praise Jesus on for that.
Hallelujah. We got it.
We are live here with special guest Bryan Bateman. He is one of the lead playtesters of Deliverance, and I thought you guys would be excited to hear, about what he had to say in regard to playtesting. And you guys have a lot of questions for him. First, I guess what we'll do is just, I'd like to hear, who are you? How'd we meet? How, just if you could catch people up. What do you do? How'd you find out about Deliverance? All that good stuff.
Wow, there's a lot of questions there.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good, good, good. Okay, so I am Bryan Bateman. I am a West Coaster who moved to Detroit and have been out in Seattle now the last 3 years, but I still feel like I'm a Midwestern Detroit guy at heart. I have been a board gamer since I was a kid on all the mass market Clue, Monopoly, Sorry type of stuff. But I started playing D&D First Edition back in the day when was all the panic about that game, and that got me into a love of dungeon games and in board games. And when I ran across Deliverance online, gosh, it must have been maybe January, February, at some point when Andrew started putting out calls for play testers, that it really intrigued me. Like, okay, there's a angel themed dungeon crawler. It kind of started checking a few boxes there for me. Um, we started chatting online back I probably February or March, and then you came out and visited me in Seattle and attended one of our local sci-fi conventions that also has a gaming track, Norwestcon.
That's awesome. And yeah, it was really interesting because at that time, you suggested Norwestcon. I said, "Hey, what conventions y'all want me to go to?" And you said Norwestcon. And I actually, every single person that asks me about a convention, I will pray about it and I will see if I can make it. And if I can, I'm there. And even if it's just to meet one person, if the doors are open, then I will go. And it was really cool. I mean, the plane ticket, the hotel stay, the Norwestcon ticket. As far as I'm concerned, it was all worth it just to meet you and have you on board playtesting. So, of course, I got more out of it than just that, but it was a really amazing experience. And yeah, it was just come to Norwestcon.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I mean, that isn't a hardcore gaming convention, but there is a very lively gaming track. I did get to learn the game there and met Donnie there and some other people that were interested in the game, and was honored that you sent me home with your copy that you had brought, your prototype, and started play testing it here with my local church-based group and some other friends.
Yeah, yeah. So a little bit on that. What motivated you to jump in? What motivates you to continue playing now, and continue playtesting?
Yeah, well, what got me to jump in? I mean, it was a combination. I am a Christian first and a gamer far second. And so, I mean, I've always got a passion for looking for Christian game designers and then just like trying to help promote them because I think that there's a part of this market that we kind of get ignored. That they want to label all of our games as being preachy or as being kind of trying to push a message. And when I first saw your game, I didn't see any of that. I saw this fantastic artwork, like just these gorgeous pictures of Michael and of Azrael and Gabriel and all that. And then as I got to learn the gameplay, I was like just blown away at that it really had this great dungeon crawler feel. Very tactical, very engaging for everyone live at the table. And I really enjoy teaching games just to begin with. So the fact that as a playtester, I'm always teaching. It's it is very much blind playtesting. Most times, I am teaching almost everyone at the table. Every now and then, I'll have someone that have played it once before. Um, and so yeah, it's just really enjoyable for me to teach this game, especially with all the rule changes over time, and just show people like what this game's about. And I've not once had an experience in, I don't know, 20 plus play tests where someone's finished the game and said, "Man, that I wish I had that 2 hours of my life back." Like that's not happened. Like everyone's walked away from it saying how much fun it was, how awesome it's been. And this is now, I don't know, six different versions of the rules. I can't remember what version you gave me when we first started. We're on 38 now, but I think it was maybe 31, 32.
Yeah,
So yeah, it was pretty interesting
very
that to
good.
see how this has grown.
And where have you playtested Deliverance? Oh, I hear some action going on.
Sorry, my kids in the background here. Where have I played tested Deliverance? I have taken it to Gen Con and played it in the middle of Lucas Oil Stadium, right almost on the 50-yard line. I have taken it to PAX West and played it there in their gaming halls. My local group of gaming friends does an annual, a gathering of friends in Detroit. So it came out there. And then I've got my Meeple Ministry. It's a monthly group I run at my church for members and friends and family, and I played it there a bunch of times, both at my house and at the church events. And so yeah, it's just got a lot of local play. And again, whenever I go to a con, I take it with me, and Andrew and I work out ahead of time the latest tweaks to the rules and make sure that I'm always showing people the most current version that he wants to have out there.
It's very cool. And just so that people know what it is, I know we have a lot of new people that have started to follow Deliverance, and a lot of people are curious about what Deliverance actually is. We'll get into maybe what you think makes it special, or that kind of thing. But for now, how would you describe Deliverance to somebody who had never really heard of this game before? And you know,
Yeah, I mean it is a very much a tactical dungeon crawlery game. Like if you like to play D&D back in the day with miniatures, right, where you have a small map, you walk into the room, and bad things are about to go down. Like that's immediately what it feels like. But you're playing these over the top, really cool characters, right? I mean, you're playing angels with massive weapons and wings and all these really cool abilities against like really horrific monsters. It's not like a bunch of little goblins that you can step on and walk away. But there's like some serious baddies in this game that you have to fight.
that's awesome. And now, when you describe, so actually, we'll start with Scott Schaefer's question. He asked, if you were describing Deliverance to an experienced gamer, what or which games would you feel are similar? Which games would you use to kind of help somebody understand how it works, how it feels? What would you say if somebody asked you that question? Which
Yeah, so like it's an amalgamation of things, and you and I have talked about this as well. So the core gameplay is on the map. I mean, you can think of a game like a Zombicide or something like that. Although that I feel like my moves are always kind of preordained. Like I know that I have to fight that zombie. There's like no other option there. But it's moving guys in the map at its most basic thing. But then you have like the way that the game gets set up and laid out, and I understood through talking with Andrew that he kind of took an inspiration from Codenames of how to like do that initial layout of where are the angels, where are the minions, where are the saints, how does everything get randomized depending on what card you picked and where you sat and what orientation you're at, which really just does this awesome job of randomizing it and making it a enjoyable, replayable experience. And then there's this darkness track, and that when I first played with it, it kind of felt like the panic levels that you get in Pandemic, where it's like, is that next card that I'm going to pull be another virus cube, or is it going to be an epidemic? Except that every one of those cards is an epidemic, right? Like the darkness just has so many things that can happen, either immediate or ongoing, or immediate and ongoing, that can just really wreck your day. And it's a force to be reckoned with. It's like the other player that you're fighting against, besides the minions, is you're fighting the darkness and keeping it at bay. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of elements at play there. And again, I'm like an old school D&Der and video gamer, and it has all these cool video game elements, right? Like think of like any cool game, MMO or Final Fantasy or anything, where you're fighting the mobs, and every now and then there's a loot drop, and your character gets a little bit stronger, and you increase your stats, and you keep going, and like the waves are going, but it's like a video game, but there's no respawn point. There's no mana potion that you can easily just tap, or food in your pocket that you can keep taking. Like there's a decision you have to make even to get healed. Like, am I going to fight or am I going to heal? But I can't just easily do one in order to do the other. So Yeah, there's just so much going on. It's a really fun
Yeah,
experience.
one of the things that I have always so when I designed the game, I designed it, that when you play Pandemic, you chimed in on Pandemic. When you play Pandemic, you um, get the first epidemic card, and you're just cleansing cubes on the board, and nothing's really a big deal, and you got rid of the ones that are kind of the imminent danger, but of 3 cubes, and then all of a sudden you get that first epidemic, and the game instructs you to place all of the cities that just got diseased back on top of the deck. And all of a sudden, when that happened, I was like, oh my goodness, it became intense for me, because I know that some of those cities I've chosen to neglect have 2 or 3 disease cubes on them, and I better get to them in time. And all of a sudden, there was this intensity that to the game, which immediately pulled me in. And with Deliverance, I wanted that same feeling. So that was kind of a fun thing. But the inspiration for Deliverance for me, a lot of the time, like you had said, it actually comes from video games. The tactical combat was originally inspired from Final Fantasy Tactics, a game that I love. Yeah, I believe Fire Emblem does something similar. Ogre Battle 64 is another one, old school game that kind of has a similar, like a grid style movement and attack system where your range is however many squares away you are, and that sort of thing. And that's why it's actually not a hex grid. It's there were other problems with hex grids that would arise, but yeah, it's kind of an interesting amalgamation of things. Your characters, I wanted them to feel overpowered, so you've got League of Legends is really the inspiration behind characters, where you should be able to 1-on-5 kill 5 characters with your guy, and then you come out the next time with your new items and you just get stomped by one person because you played wrong. That's kind of what I wanted, that feeling. And the boss fights, I wanted I intended to be like an MMO boss encounter where
Oh, totally.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that's
It feels like that MMO boss battle. It's like, oh boy, what did I just step into? And if you aren't healed up, and if you won't have your weapons readied, yeah, that can be quite a punishing
yeah, it's
encounter.
one of those things that in between battles 1 and 2. So we could explain a little bit about how the game works, because I know that a lot of everybody watching doesn't know, really how the game actually plays, and part of that is by design. I'm sorry, guys, but I think I'm happy to, at this point, feels like things are really solid, and we can share a little bit about how we are, where we're at as far as the way the round sequence works, and kind of from a bird's eye view what happens. Of course, things may change, but we're at a pretty stable state, so we can talk about that. But in between the first battle and the second battle, so the first battle is you start out with full health and all of that, and the second battle, the big bad guy, the fallen prince, comes out, and you have to deal with him. And if you beat all the demons in that second battle, you win the game. So one of the things I really wanted was that feeling of intensity, to kind of keep ramping up in intensity. And so that's why in between battle number 1 and battle number 2, you do not heal. So a lot of the time, people will just be attacking stuff, ignoring the darkness cards, and that kind of thing. And on easier modes, you can kind of get away with that somewhat. But when the second round or the second battle comes, you kind of just realize what a deep hole you're in, and there are all these demons at full health, and you're there at a couple of players are below 5 health each, and you got to try to survive. So
But that's what makes it so much fun, though, right? Because you've hit the turn, you're setting up for the second half of the game, and you've got a character that's down to like under 7 health, and it's like, ooh, this is looking bad, because again, any angel dies, any angel doesn't make it through the encounter, and you've lost. And then like a character just pulls this rabbit out of the hat, right? Like, hey, wait a minute, I've got a prayer card that can do this, and you can have the ability to get +1 on your heals, and someone else can do a heal event on you, and pretty soon, like, everyone's rallied around you really quick to buff you up real quick, so that you're just right back in the battle, and that just feels so good when that happens.
yeah, it's one thing I find just in my, I mean, I guess I've had maybe 500 playtests of Deliverance myself, but maybe 500 first rounds of Deliverance, just demoing it and all of that so far. But what I find is that the level of interaction that you have between players, it's almost a constant chatter of I have this, I can do this, does anybody need that going on, or I'm going to do this with my particular skill, and we're going to and this is going to allow you to maybe drop that enemy, do you want to do that so I can help you or whatever. There's this constant chatter between the players of how they're going to do it. It's really not limited like, okay, it's my turn, I'm going to move and then attack and that's it, and now it's your turn.
And that's what the takeaway is every time I play this, is that this isn't a game where I take a move and then I walk away and play with my phone, or I take a move and then I get up and go get a drink because I don't have to pay attention because it's not going to come back to me for like 10 minutes. The action's quick, the play is engaging. There's always something that's going on that could be impacting you, impacting someone else. Like on someone else's turn, they're rolling for the minion, right? So they've got the AI controlling the minion, and that minion is attacking you because it's like player with the highest health or player who's closest, or whatever the rule is for that particular attack. And so you have to stay fully engaged, and it's rare to find a game that keeps 4 or 5 people all sitting at the table staring intently at what's going on and not losing focus and getting distracted by the world. I mean, you stay immersed in this game. Really, the whole time you get that little bit of a break in the middle when you reset for the second half, and that gives everyone a chance to breathe. But yeah, I mean, I can't think of another game where I can just I have to be in it, and it feels good to be in it. Like, you just get totally into like what this battle's going on, and sometimes we'll stop and like visualize, like, do you realize the move we just did? Like, Sardius just stomps his foot, and everything goes sliding at him, and then he just does a forearm shiver and just knocks all those minions down. Like, we just like put the visual to it. Like, that would have been really cool to have seen that live in some kind of a gameplay.
Yeah, it would be pretty awesome if we make $1 million or $10 million or whatever and can do like a video game adaptation. We'd have a lot of material to work with, right? So.
Just getting the players to visualize, I think helps them even better understand. Like, we started talking about the ebb and flow. Is it Miko's ebb and flow? And people were trying to like figure out how does that work. And I just explained, like, can you imagine, like, she kind of like can slide in and do her action, or do an action then kind of slide out of the way because she's an angel of the rivers, and she's kind of got this liquidity to her. And that visualization kind of helped shape their gameplay to play her properly, and they really enjoyed. Once they kind of figured that out, like what the passive did, then they were all in it. Like, this was great, right? So I think that there's like a little bit of that storytelling element that can come out as you're playing.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that the story really, I guess, when as a game designer, when I'm designing, I really need some kind of like if you go play, you go bowling at a bowling alley, there are the gutters on the left and right hand side. It's the thing that if you stray too far to the left or to the right, then you've kind of lost, right? And in the same way, as a game designer, I need to have these almost like the sandbox needs to be defined for me, and I need to limit what I'm able to do, and I need to work within a certain scope, I guess. And the scope is really the story and the world that I've built, what makes sense for the world that I have built. And really, I've not built the world, I've just taken it from the Bible as kind of my box, and I can work within, as far as story and theme, I can work within the scope of that that area. And of course, with a heavy dose of fantasy, there's a lot that that we can do beyond that. But it helping to limit me has also helped things to feel a little bit more tangible. Like the angels all have elements or roles, specialized roles, and that has come, that is kind of limiting. It would be nice if I could have, make angels up, off the cuff, but that sort of limiting nature has allowed me to, I guess it's just helped players understand those characters a little bit easier and what to do and how to play them.
I think the nice appeal, though, is that if you are a tactical gamer, if you are a video gamer, like you instantly pick up on those elements that you put in. Like, hey, this character's really good at AOE or area of effect attacks. This character's really good at tanking, right? So like immediately, like I just connected those dots, and you start playing those characters well. And for people that aren't into video games that engage this, it might help if there's someone that can explain more. Like your characters can do a lot, but if you play it this way, you'll get a lot more out of this angel because you're kind of playing into their strengths instead of playing against
Hmm.
their strengths. It was the case in one gameplay we did where someone was playing Sardius, who has this shield generating ability, and he really does tank well for the party. And they were playing him from the rear, and it's like you put your tank in the back, like he's got all these shields and all this health, and everyone's dying because you're in the back trying to figure out the moves. And I had to really like kind of nudge the player, like you should be the tip of the spear there, holding back these minions while your other players are just sniping at him from the sides. And once he adjusted his gameplay, like suddenly he's like, oh, this is so much more fun. Like, yes, because that's what he
Yeah.
does really well, right? He's stone. He just builds this shield wall and can hold things at bay and just regenerate it with every action he
Yeah,
takes.
it's fun because the some of the feedback I've heard is just the asymmetrical role of the angels. You've got Azrael, the angel of death. He causes plague and pestilence to just bounce all across the map with an unlimited range, and it just feels like you're the angel of death, and it's very strong and damaging and whatnot. But then Sardius, the stonebender, like you had been mentioning, his ultimate, if you will, his ability that costs the greatest amount of resources is actually a healing ability. So I've heard a lot of positive things about the kind of the asymmetrical nature of those heroes. And so, before we go any further, I'd like to ask you, how do you play a round of Deliverance? Like, what is, I guess, from a bird's eye view, not needing to get super technical, but just for the people that are new to the game or don't really understand how it works, what what do you do in order to play a round of Deliverance?
The map tiles themselves, as we've been talking, it's a grid, and so with the tiles that you've got, you pick what orientation, front or back side of the grid, which way is up, and you put two grids side by side and lay them out, and that sets, for the most part, it just sets where some of the boundaries are in the game. There's these barrier walls that both the angels and the minions cannot pass through, and then there's these battle cards, and so the battle card. They're randomized, they're shuffled out, and depending on where the person's sitting and what of the boards they're sitting in front of, I have them place the card in front of them. And in that orientation, that card is a 4x4 grid, and it shows the starting position of their angel, the starting position of the saint, and then which minion they're fighting against and where those minions start. And so the really cool thing is that depending on how these cards get laid out, on any given card, you don't have angels on top of minions, or you don't have minions on top of the saints. But when you get 4 or 5 people all putting their cards out and then laying out their standees, you'll see like suddenly like, oh, we're in trouble. Like you have one angel standing with on top of a demonic minion with 2 around him, and then there's a saint that's got 1 on top of it, and suddenly you've started the game in this panic mode of like, how do you deal with that? So everyone gets these starting cards, you lay them all out, and again, think of like that starting grid in code names where you have where's the assassin, where's the red players, where's the blue players. It's kind of got that same feel, right? After you get all that sorted out, and you end up with having a set of minions that you're fighting per angel, right? So in a 4-player game, you're fighting 4 sets of minions. That's like 8 demons that are out on the board with the 4 angels. Then we just kind of pick the starting player and go around the table, and you get a couple of actions. You get 2 actions, and like most games, there's standard actions that all of the angels have. They all have some kind of advance, which allows them to move and ready their weapons. They all have the ability to pray, and praying gives them they get to power up their future moves. They get an extra prayer card, and then you can roll a die, and based on that die roll, you're able, if you roll high enough, if you roll like 3 to 6 on the die roll, you can strike down some darkness, which I haven't talked about yet, or you can get rid of a negative effect that's on your character. And then the third thing you do is just your basic attack, and your attack's based on your character strengths, like just a punch. But then everything else that's on your character sheet is wildly different from character to character, and you were either gaining the courage tokens to power up your angel over time, or you're spending those courage tokens. And there's something really satisfying about building up to 4 or 5 courage tokens and then popping off a big attack, spending all of them, and just like wiping out a little area of minions. That darkness tactic you talked about, we shuffle these cards up, and they're all cards that are either doing damages to health, or they're nerfing your abilities, or they're buffing the demon's abilities, or they're just causing some mayhem on the board. These things all roll out face down, one per player, and then ongoing as you're playing. If you don't pray off that darkness, if you don't find a way to cast it down, those cards will flip up and activate. And at the beginning of each round, you're taking that negative hit, and whether it's a one-time or an ongoing hit. Yeah, sometimes they're pretty bad, and then things can stack, right? If you have a couple of darkness cards that play off each other, it's like all of your hits are at a -1, and all the demons' damage is at a +1, and suddenly you're at a really tough spot for the next round until some of those cards get prayed away. So on any player's turn, you're playing your 2 actions, and then you've got the ability to be the AI for the demonic minion. And I've had people ask me, like, hey, do I get to play the demon? And I'm like, well, yes and no. You are rolling the die. You are setting up what the AI is going to do for that demon, but you aren't actively saying the demon's going to walk here and punch this guy. So you roll a 6-sided based on the minion card that is in front of you. You're selecting the actions, and again, their actions can be wildly different. Sometimes they're very punchy. Sometimes there's one of them that has a range of infinity, right? And he just pops around the board and looks for whoever's got the most health or the least health and just starts picking on them. There's one of them that actually hurts himself. As he hurts you, he hurts himself, right?
Yeah, persecution and possession and all of that.
Yeah,
with the unclean spirit.
So with the AI, you roll the die once. If there's 2 of those minions out there, they're both doing the same action, but you're still independently on each one of them doing their move, if there is a move, rolling for them to hit, and taking the status effects. And after you've gone all the way around the table, you've had 4 angels go, and you've had 8 of these demonic minions go. At that point, you're checking the status of the board. So these saints that we've talked about, these are your saints that you're protecting, right? These are the humans that are out there. And if you've managed to be on top of a human, or if you've walked past the human, you've made them blessed, and these darkness cards won't affect them. But if the demons have gone past them or are standing on top of them, they're oppressed, and that's going to cause these darkness cards to flip up. And that's when the badness happens, when you can see the writing on the cards.
So the saints are kind of like you have this standing order to protect them as an angel. These saints represent, actually somebody asked about the difference between the saints and angels, and Alan Garcia asked about that. And the saints are these extra special humans in the physical realm. They can't see you and they cannot hear you, but they're drawn to your presence, and it's your standing order as an angel in the army of light to protect them. So it's kind of the whole guardian angel thing. You need to, you walk on top of them, you flip that token to the gold side, which represents they're being protected, and then the darkness is a little bit less dangerous. But if they're on that kind of oppressed, the blue side represents when they're oppressed. The darkness is going to end up flipping face up for every oppressed saint. And so the saints are kind of like NPC characters that you have to worry about and help, and they can help you as well. So I'll let you talk about that, Bryan.
Yeah. So the great thing is that if you happen to end your turn, or if you plan tactically to end your turn protecting a saint by standing in the same square as them, then at the time that you do the round reset, your character gains some heavenly treasure. So protecting a saint's a great way to gain treasure, and the treasures, if you think of any kind of like a loot drop, it could be a piece of armor, it could be a weapon, it could be a tome. As sense will let you know that if you've already got a pair of boots, you can't get another pair of boots, so you might have a decision to make there of like, well, the Lord gave me 2 sets of boots, which one's better for my character, and what would I do with this other set of boots? Am I dropping it, or am I able to trade it with another character? You have a decision to make there. And all of the characters start with a basic starting weapon that is suited for their character, and it has a little bit of buff to their stats. And these weapons can either have just a stat buff. They could have the ability to tap the weapon and get a one-shot activity out of them, or it could have this ongoing passive effect, right? And again, those things will stack. So if you happen to catch the right collection of armor pieces or weapons as you are playing the game, you can really power up your character quite significantly, which is needed for that second half of the survival mode when a demonic prince comes out. The other way to get heavenly treasure is that if you totally wipe off one of the pairs of minions, so again, four pairs of minions come out to start this game, and so if you get rid of uh, the hateful fiends, right, you take them all off the board, then you are grifted a piece of heavenly treasure as well. And that's one of the great rule changes that I've seen in this game is treasure felt very sparse when I first started playing this game back in April. And Andrew's talked to a lot of other playtesters. He's talked to me quite a bit. He's done more of his own playtesting, and he's tweaked that mechanic a few times to trying to find the right balance of like there went to be like way too little treasure to way too much treasure to now I think a really nice healthy balance of just enough treasure to make you feel like you have armored up a bit and you're in it and you're able to make the second half of the game and actually like make it out alive, right? Without any heavenly treasure, you're not getting out of the second half of the survival mode. I don't care what level you're playing at. Like it just adds enough little extra buffs to like give your character that oomph it needs to get over the
one of the fun things about the heavenly treasure is heavenly treasure is the equipment of Deliverance, is the equipment of the game and the items you get. And if you couldn't tell already, but one of the fun things that I wanted to make sure that players couldn't optimize their characters every game, because certain items are just better for certain characters. Azrael is all about status effects and whatnot, and if you get like a death sting, which is an offhand dagger, it gives you additional damage if any enemy has a status effect on them. That's really amazing for Azrael. It also gives some bonus stats that Azrael really likes. But if you could get that every single game, it feels like the replay value actually goes down. So I really like the fact that you have to almost like work with what you're handed. You can't just optimize the best item, in slot every single, game. And that was one thing that was important enough to me that for replayability, I don't know what you think about that.
Right. Well, that's the thing I always dislike about an MMO. Is that, hey, if I fight this boss, I get this armor. If I fight this mob, I get this weapon, right? And so, like, you can easily figure out what's the right combo that I can get, and I'm unbeatable, or I can at least always take on this thing. I have not played with every one of those heavenly treasure cards. There's enough. That's a really big deck. They get spread out quite a bit. I've in all my gameplays, I might have actually equipped maybe a quarter or a third of that deck on my angels. There's a lot more that I've seen other people have, but I haven't played them myself to see how they play. And my favorite part of the fact is that you have Saul's armor and Saul's weaponry, and it does a little bit of good and a little bit of not so good because it's Saul's. Like the first time I saw that, I'm like, okay, that's fantastically clever, and someone who doesn't understand where Saul is in the Bible might not understand why would your weapon nerf you a little bit in this one area, and it opens up a conversation, right? Which is what I think is so great about board games, is that you can stop and have that quick conversation.
What is this?
Well, who was Saul and why would this be? What is this? Yeah, it's so great. And I have not played, to be clear, I played this game at Gen Con. I wasn't saying where are my Christian gamers at. I'm like, where are my tabletop gamers at that want to try a dungeon crawler? I put it out in the open catalog for anybody to play. The first night, I played 2 games in a hotel lobby. There wasn't a Christian among them other than me. These guys looked at it. They wanted to turn their nose up, but they were kind of intrigued. It wasn't even in the catalog the first night. It was just like hotel lobby, come and try it out. They loved it. And the one guy's like, yeah, like I don't read the Bible. I don't believe in this stuff. This was fantastic. And I mean, hearing this guy next to me saying, okay, I need to pray right now to get rid of this darkness. I'm like, yes, you do.
Yeah.
It's so good. I mean, it's super empowering when you play with a Christian gamer group, right? But when you don't play with that group, you just play with anybody that's worldly that comes out, and they're praying and they're getting their heavenly treasure. Like it feels good, right? Like they get into it. They don't feel like they got preached to. They don't feel like they had to walk away with a moral lesson. Like they played a really enjoyable game, and if they learned a little bit of something, and if they got a little bit of curious about, well, what is this about? Who is this Michael guy, and why should I care? Like, we can point them in the right direction,
So the Jacob Cecil asked a couple of questions. The first one he asked sounds like you might have answered it with the Heavenly Treasure, but he asked what has been the best change made to the game over the playtesting period where you've been a part of it that really elevated the game for you. Was it the Heavenly Treasures?
I think adding the light and dark two-sided and the ability to cast light or cast darkness and the effects that those have, which are either
The light and shadow,
heals
right?
or damage. Yeah, the light and shadow. Sorry, the light and shadow. Yeah, that was a really
Yeah.
nice change. I think the couple of iterations and walking through that journey with you on how the Heavenly Treasure has evolved, and with that, how the Darkness cards have evolved, and how the Saints and their the abilities of the Saints has evolved. Like it all has kind of like been intertwined. It's a system. It's not a single one. Like, oh, that one piece changed and the whole game got better. I think, frankly, the recommendation that I had where we keep sliding the demons down and not having the whole, like you had talked about it and I had kind of thought about it. I like that a lot. Like you got it to a point, and to explain to people that haven't played, um, every angel draws that battle card, as I mentioned, which draws a demonic minion card, which puts two minions on the board. Well, when your minions have been beat in the original version that I played, then you didn't control any AI demons for that round. And so you could get to a point where you've killed in player order like two demons in a row, and so you have like a bunch of angel moves without any demons interacting, and then it felt like way too overpowered.
You get
And
six
so
actions in a row and
part
just
of
demolish all the rest of the demons, right? Yeah.
you could just wipe the board really quickly. So the idea of like continually like thinking of Dungeons and Dragons and initiative, like just slide those demons down and like their initiative, they still keep going in initiative order. Just because you haven't gone around the table doesn't mean that they don't keep fighting you in an order. I just kept sliding the cards down, and so like you're not always playing the demon that you drew, which as a player then I'm seeing what all the other demonic minions do, so I'm getting more looks at the game, which is much more interesting. And there's never a time where like my gameplay was half of yours, because I got to play only the angel, and you get to play the angel, and you got to control the minion. Like everyone gets the ability. Now at some point you wipe them all off the board, and it does get a quick diminishing returns. But there's a mechanic for that when you wipe them all off and you didn't get that last turn, the game in that mid game reset lets you spend those unused actions to either get some Heavenly Treasure or get rid of an effect. I can't even remember what else. Get a prayer card. There's a few effects that happen with the unused actions. To be honest, most times when I play, Andrew, it's the last person in the rotation kills the last minion, and they might have one thing left over, and inevitably they're like, okay, I need one more prayer card. Like I need that one little thing in my hand that I know is going to help me.
So now, how about so we've talked a little bit about some, we've gotten into the weeds a little bit with some of the way the game works and the nuances of the game. Just a little recap for how you would actually play Deliverance. So in the beginning of the game, these darkness cards come face down on the board. That would be one darkness card per player, and they're going to turn face up and do traumatic things to you if you don't deal with them. After the darkness cards come out, you start rotating actions. So each angel gets 2 actions, followed by each demon gets 1 action. So the first player takes 2 actions, and then each demon of a single type takes 1 action apiece, which you roll a single 6-sided die to see what it is that they're going to do, read their card, and move the demons. And then the next angel. So you repeat that until all the angels and demons have acted, and then you go right on back to the darkness phase, and depending on how many saints are oppressed, that many darkness cards are going to flip face up and activate. So you can protect the saints during your turn, when you're doing actions and whatnot, but at the top of the next round, some of that darkness is going to get flipped up and activated. And then, just like before, the same number of darkness cards are going to come into play face down, 1 per player. There's a limit to the number of darkness cards that can actually hit the field, which is 5 if you're playing 1, 2, or 3 players, or 6 if you're playing with 4 or 5 players. And so that if they're only, let's say you're playing a full 5-player game, and there are only 6 spots, then there are going to be excess darkness, that you're going to draw, over an abundance of 6. Well, for every card that you would draw there's no spaces on the board. If you draw your 7th card, instead you're going to discard it, and every player each player is going to take 1 damage for discarding that card. So that's kind of a general view about how Deliverance works. Maybe later we'll give a playtesting video or something like that. But so let's move on to something a little bit more, I guess, broad brushstroke. But Max Vincent asked a question that is I would really love to hear your answer. What mechanics separate Deliverance from everything else? So we're talking dungeon crawls and Christian board
Yes.
games and whatever wherever you want to go with that. What mechanics separate Deliverance?
I mean, I've mentioned them both already, but I think uh, the battle cards themselves and the darkness track both really separate this game. The battle cards in that it will change depending on where you're sitting, what cards you got, what board you're in front of. Like it just really does a lot more than the randomized. You like I think of like the most randomized game setup is something like Flashpoint, where you roll two dice and you put something at the intersection. Like that's kind of a boring setup. But this is like the exciting, like, oh, what did I get? What are we gonna fight? Oh, where are we at? Where did the other angels land at? Like there's just like an excitement of like, how is this battle going to initially unfold? And I've never seen two alike, right? We just are very different. And then like that darkness track, it's like the unknown of like what is on that face down card, and oh, I'm praying one of these down. What one do we think is the worst one? We have no idea. We don't have the ability to peek. Um, and that is actually a piece of feedback I got from someone. Is like, a lot of games have the ability like, hey, can you peek at the top three and reshuffle them and put them down? And I think you have that
Mm-hmm.
mechanic in there, but we didn't run across it at that play test. But like not knowing what's coming at you, just adds like this really nice healthy tension that I don't feel in other games. Like yeah, I can see the bad thing on the board because a giant piece of plastic is there
Mm-hmm.
coming at me. But these, five face down cards are a lot scarier than 60 millimeters of
Yeah,
plastic,
yeah.
right? Like there's just, and especially when you've gotten so enthralled in wanting to take care of the threat in front of you that you lose sight. And I tend to tell players ahead of time what the darkness track is, and then I'll let them go around, and I won't keep nudging them to remind them like, hey, take care of darkness, take care of darkness. I want them to have that experience of those things will activate because the Saints got oppressed and the cards flipped, and oh, we just took three bad things in a row. Um, like that's a oof moment that everyone's like, oh yeah, this game just suddenly has a higher level of awareness that you need. So yeah, I love the darkness track. That is, I think the most appealing part of that is that unknown mounting dread. And then, I don't think we mentioned it yet, but as you get into the second half of the game, and then one of the demonic princes come out, they have their own specialized custom decks, and until you've played through all of those, you really don't know what's coming out. But it's definitely something more intense than the run-of-the-mill darkness deck, and it stacks with that other stuff that's coming out there. So yeah, that whole mechanic I think is just really really fun. And in my gamer brain, I'm thinking like, okay, so when this thing launches and you think Kickstarter, like eventually I could see. I'm assuming that you have plans for what would more angels look like, and what would more demons look like, and how could you keep expanding this world. Like there's just a lot of cool stuff I can see
Yeah.
coming in the future when this is a
I've
success.
I was told one time, actually, Guy, a member of the Deliverance Insiders, and a huge help to me. A man named Ted Apollo runs Gaming on Grand in Escondido, California. If you're anywhere in that area, I think that it's a phenomenal store. Really friendly guy. I love supporting him and his store. But the the advice he gave to me when I was just before I had invested a piece into or anything into art, he said that you should design your game right from the very beginning with expansions in mind. So,
Oh
do
yeah.
it huge and cut pieces out. Design for me. I've designed 15 angels, and I think we have 8 of them that you can actually play test and that kind of thing. So I have kind of been tooling around with that. But yeah, if it is big, and we, there's huge demand for an expansion, or this Kickstarter just goes haywire and we need stretch goals, then that's material that I've already built and tested and whatnot that I can pull from.
Very nice.
So that's pretty cool. Yeah, and I guess my answer to the question would be, so the things that I feel like are special myself, I know I'm quite a little bit of a bias. But I really love the tension that so you win the game by beating the demons, destroying all the demons. You win the game. That's how you do it. But you you also have to deal with the tension of the darkness, and you can't ever let one or the other, the demons or the darkness, get too far out of control. You could lose either way. So you lose if you go to 0 health. You if you're defeated, then the whole team loses. So that's just if one angel goes to 0 health, you all lose. And so I thought I've always thought that was a special thing, that tension, and that's really what a lot of the balance of the game comes down to, is trying to make sure that each one of those elements, the darkness and the demons, feel dangerous. And then one other element I've been told by my playtesters many times, and it's something I've observed, is that so when players will pick a character, sometimes we've had people pick like little girls, like 9-year-old girls. Jamie Jameson has a daughter who's the cutest little girl in the world, and she picked a character that she felt, yeah, that's right, that looked like her, and she, I think she wanted to play, and I don't know if this is the case actually, but because you did that playtest, I think, but many people,
Yep.
awesome, yeah, so many people have played their style. Sometimes people really like to be the healer and support and whatnot, and so sometimes you get people that are playing Michael the Archangel, who wants to deal damage, wants to attack, but they are able to adapt the character to their style of game, and they're kind of running support and healing people and preventing damage and doing that kind of thing, which has always been really fun to me, that there's not a single way to play a character, but each character you can kind of fit to your own style. There's enough room for creativity and whatnot. And that's one of the things I've always appreciated about the game myself.
Yeah, I tend to take whatever characters I let people just pick when I do playtesting, like what character speaks to you, and then I will go out of my way to play one I haven't played, which I know by now I've played them all. Um, and yeah, there isn't like, yeah, all these feel really well fought, and this one still is a little rough. Like, they're all really well polished characters. The 8 that I've got here are just a lot of fun to play. And so, like, whenever people ask me, like, well, which one should I play? That's always a hard answer for me. It's like, well, I can start like doing a quiz with you on your gameplay style, or like I'd be like, pick the artwork you like the best and let's go from there, right? Like, that's just as easy, just to start with the one that you kind of think looks cool, and then let's just take it on.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm 100% on board with that. So let's see. We have some other questions. So we've talked about mechanics and goals of the game and that kind of thing. Paul Ott asked a question: what was your favorite moment or memory playing the game so far?
Uh, you know, I had one, and then just about 2 weeks ago, I was in Detroit playing this with some of my old Midwest crew, and I erased it with a new favorite moment. And that is playing with Christine. I'm going to show her card art here. If you can see Christine, right? One of the guys picked Christine because they thought, yeah, she looks pretty vicious. They kind of felt she had a Wonder Woman vibe. Um, and in the second half of the game, fairly well surrounded by minions right off the battle cards. So like Christine was sitting there, she had people all around her, and she had gotten a really nice set of heavenly treasure. And on her card, the very last item is Great Storm, and it stacks off of both your determination and wisdom stats. And it target one space, every enemy within one range suffers damage equal to the combination. And I posted the picture and sent it to you, Andrew, because she was doing, what was it, 14 points of damage to everything within a one range space. And she dropped that thing like a nuclear bomb. And like on the field, we're just like, boosh. She wiped out like 5 minions at once with one hit. And everyone's just like, whoa, this is like 1 in the morning, and her hair is a little bit blown back. And suddenly the guys are like, that is the most powerful angel in the box. I'm like, nope. He played her really well. He had the right treasure. Um, like it's hard to say like she's overpowered because they want to say, oh, she's OP. I'm like, no, 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 no. I've never even seen someone pull this combo off before. It just was all their treasure stacked on those two stats by randomness. It's like, well, the Lord had need of it. Great Storm had to happen, wipe out that section of the board. It was like a cool moment. We're all just like shaking our heads, like, That was awesome. And we're like kicking over the standees, like there's like a little bomb blast just went off around them, and she's just standing there in the middle. And the guy that's played her just like drop the mic, walk
Yep.
away. If you saw his video, John, I think that was his video that we posted on the board here a couple days ago. That was him that pulled that really cool
That's
move
awesome.
off.
So now I'm curious about the other moment. What was it? What was that other moment that you were thinking about? I don't know if you want to share about that one.
Yeah, well, the other moment is when I was at the brink of death. Like we were playing this, it must have been Gen Con, and we had, I want to say it was Michael. We weren't playing Michael well, and we weren't healing, and it was like down to like two health, and like, oh, we're gonna eat it before we even like the darkness cards we thought were gonna kill us before we even got to playing the next round. And through a series of events, like the darkness cards didn't kill him off. Everyone like prayed and had cards, and they spent all their turns like in rapid succession, heal him up, heal him up, heal him up, throw some shields, and suddenly he's back into fighting shape, and we did end up winning that battle. I think that's the one that we played with Jamie Jameson, where it was just like we thought for sure like this game is done halfway in, we are dead, and just to see everyone rally quickly, like heal this guy up. And heals are not easy to come by in this game. It's not like they're sitting there. Like I said, it's not like you have Lembus sitting around that we can just chew on and get healthy and let's keep fighting. Like it's tough to get a heal. You have to be powered up with courage and have the right character in play, have a prayer card or have something, and it all just kind of came together to like pull us out of the ditch, which was really cool.
That's awesome. I think that some of my favorite moments as well are coming back from the brink of death. And one time I remember being at one health and barely winning the game. The very next action that would have happened was like a very passive thing that would have just wrecked us, and I was able to, deal that last point of damage to the last guy and win the game, and it just felt so strong. And then I realized that the novice, like lowest difficulty level, was too hard because I'm an experienced gamer that it just barely survived. And so, but anyway, that's awesome. So, we've been recording for a while, and I just wanted to ask, what would you say to somebody, first of all, Marina Freeman asked, when can I buy it? The answer to that is we'll probably go to, my estimate is that we'll go to Kickstarter somewhere within the next 6 to 12 months. I say that because at the moment we don't have a publisher for the game. I am sensitive to the needs of whatever publisher we do use. I'm talking to publishers now, but we'll have a more solid idea of when we're going to go to Kickstarter soon. But when we do go to Kickstarter, what would be your, I guess your estimate for how it's going to do for, and who should back a game like this?
Wow. So I am like a Kickstarter fanboy. I've been on Kickstarter doing almost exclusively board games since like, I don't know, 2013. Um, and so how do I think this game will do? I think that based on the audience that has grown around this game over time. I mean, this feels like to me, it feels like you're gonna knock it out of the park on day one. You're gonna meet your goal, and then we're just gonna all be hanging on and going for this fun ride, right? It just has that positive vibe. I've yet to have a playtest that went south or went sour. Like just playing the game, and I think if we have like the right video and the right imagery, like people can really capture the moment, and you get them in that 90-second snapshot of like this is what you're backing, this is what you're investing in. That I think it's just going to do great. And I can't remember the second half of your question now about the Kickstarter.
The question was who would back the game? Who would you recommend? What type of person would this be a really good fit for? Um,
I mean, definitely co-op players. Like if you like games where it's not like that semi co-op or the competitive co-op where you're all playing together but you're really not playing together because there's a traitor. Like there's none of that nonsense. It's truly cooperative game players. I mean, I think it's good playing in small groups. So if you've only got like a two person, it scales really nicely from 2 to 5. I know you play solo. I don't really play solo myself. I do play a lot of 2 and 3 players. So yeah, if you like small play count, if you like 5 player play count, if you like cooperative, and if you like games that just have that immediate reward, it's not What it's not 30 minutes to set up your turn to take one action, watch what happened, and then recalculate for another 30 minutes and take notes on a spreadsheet. Like there's games like that. I just spent last weekend playing games like that, right? Like those games hurt my head. I love them, but they hurt my head. This is for someone that just wants to get in there and have fun, right? I mean, the play length on this with 4 or 5, I can keep it under 2 hours with a large group, and it's an invigorating 2 hours. So I think that kind of gamer that just wants something you can get in and play. The rule book's not very big. You don't need an hour to learn the rules to start playing. But someone that likes to like get in and just set it up and go, I think will really enjoy this game. Um, all those board game buzzwords, right? Like worker placement and Euro and deck management, hand management, like all that thing don't really apply to this game. This game is really just you're playing the strengths of your character. You're trying to defeat as a team and take down the darkness. And I think if you like that cooperative gameplay, you'll love this game.
That's awesome. Well, excellent words. Now, before we separate, is there anything else you would like to say? Any final thoughts?
Any final thoughts? Yeah, I'm really excited to see how this continues to evolve. One of our first interactions, I said, "Man, this game needs minis, right?" And I'm here to tell you now, as the guy who likes big boxes of plastic, right? It doesn't need minis, right? This game just needs to get people playing it. Um, I don't see how adding bling to this is going to change the gameplay in any way. So like I really had a heart change on like what this game needs to be successful. I just think it needs more people playing, more people getting the opportunity to check this thing out as a playtest, and then back that thing up on Kickstarter when it comes live, and just show your support for this fantastic game. Yeah, I'm definitely a day one backer. I've been playtesting, for years. I've playtested a couple of games that have gone to production, back with Arcane Wonders, and it's really a good feeling to have a game that you've helped shape get to market. I love how much Andrew takes the feedback from his playtesters. We have our own little side channel where we talk about rule tweaks that he's got thinking of, and he gives us a challenge like, hey, the next time you play it, try this thing out and see how it feels, and come back to me with some playtest feedback. And I shoot video for him as well of like, here's like player feedback that's live from the player. And I love the fact that we have this ability to interactively, through my playtesting, help you make this even a tighter game, and get more people
Yeah, well,
engaged with it.
for my part, I really appreciate all of the effort that you put in. It's not a light thing to ask when I ask. For example, even now, taking time away, I'm sure that your awesome food is it might be cooling down and waiting for you. So but I all of the time and effort, energy that you put in, I really appreciate it, and it's definitely made a much better game. And same goes for all the playtesters that have really been helpful. I mean, everyone, it seems like, is really kind of I mean, they're just trying hard, and I appreciate how you've been flexible for, like, I think the 2 days before Gen Con, I was like, hey, tweak these rules, see how it works. And that's
Yes.
a pretty happens all the time. So but anyway, I guess for me and my part, I appreciate having you on board, and to all of our other playtesters as well. It's been extremely, it's been my pleasure. So I guess I appreciate you, Bryan. And then what's funny is I have no idea how to end this and make sure that it actually goes to Facebook Live. So I'm just gonna go kind of minimize this OBS and see how I guess see how it is like with the live video. So I fear
Right.
ending the live video like too early. So
Well, I do appreciate you having me on and letting me babble for an hour and getting excited like a fanboy over your game. And yeah, it's been great. So hopefully this video is recorded properly, and everyone's had a
yeah,
chance to see
yeah,
it.
very good. So cool, man. Well, I guess we're over and out, aren't we?
All right, brother.
All
Yes, we
right,
are
I'll
over and
catch you
out.
around then. Thank you.